Hi, I'm Gillian and welcome to the show. I offer spiritual growth for the rebel soul, guiding you through the labyrinth of your own ascension path. This show is for the rebel souls that challenge the status quo, those that crave authenticity in every single aspect of their lives, that desire to embrace their uniqueness, follow their passions, connect to their soul and live according to who they truly are, even if that means having the courage to go against the grain or the norms of society. If that's you, my spiritual soul seeker, rebel warrior, then this is the place for you. On this podcast, we speak about everything from spirituality, sexuality, conscious relationships, business, and literally everything in between. So if that's your jam, then stay tuned. And go on, be a rebel and subscribe. You know you want to.
Welcome back, everyone. So, I did a post about claircognizance on my socials, and I had a bunch of questions come through, so I thought, what a perfect topic to speak on in today's episode. Because it really does look like it is one of the most misunderstood psychic gifts that we can have. And it's also one of the gifts that actually causes the most self-doubt from people, from what I have seen. And that was actually what my post was about, in fact, because if you're claircognizant, your intuition doesn't often feel so dramatic, like a big boom sign that it helps you to actually trust what's coming through, and that's the truth of it, right? I have had clients who have literally said to me they were waiting for this, oh my God, this booming spirit voice, or to get full body chills, or just this crazy vision, just like an undeniable type sign that they just couldn't ignore. But when actually all along, their soul was just going, hello, I already told you this. I told you through a knowing. And that's the reason, if you are claircognizant, i.e. your psychic sense is that inner knowing, then it's so easy to doubt yourself and ignore it and think that you've made it up, because it actually just comes through so naturally. So I was teaching my students recently, and one of them is incredibly claircognizant, right? She gets great information, but the problem is that she doesn't trust it. And that is such a common thing, as I said, when you're claircognizant. When she's in a reading, the information starts to pour through, but because the information comes through as the knowing, she keeps thinking she's making it up. And the weird thing about people that are claircognizant is the psychic information that comes through, the way that you read energy, the way that spirit speaks to you, it can literally sound like your own thoughts. So this is why it's so easy for you to think that you're actually just making it up, that it's not actually your intuition speaking. And what you need to realize is that it just sounds like you, right? And there's a reason it sounds like you, because the energy that you're reading, the information that you're picking up psychically, it is moving through you. It is moving through your own body, your own consciousness, your own language, your own nervous system. It moves through you. And one of the biggest lessons, if you are claircognizant, is that you're going to have to stop needing to have all the evidence before you actually start trusting your soul. That is the lesson. Just trust what already came through. Because again, I see this happen all the time. You'll get the information and then you just start to override it immediately. You'll get your first hit and then you start questioning it. And again, the same themes come up is, what if I'm wrong? What if I sound stupid? What if I made this up? And the second that you do that, you disconnect from the energy, you disconnect from the thread. And it's not because, spirit stopped speaking to you. It's because your fear got in the way. It interrupted the impression that you were getting. It interrupted the thread, the message that you're already picking up. And that is why I see so many gifted claircognizants not actually do anything, not step into their work, not trusting themselves. They know that they're gifted, and sometimes they get really great intuitive hits, but it doesn't actually take them anywhere. It doesn't go anywhere. They can't actually do a full reading, and they can't use it to step into their soul work. And what can happen if you are doing a reading, then you could get, like my client did, right? Like my student did. She started getting loads of information pour in, and then at a certain point, there was a certain timeline where she started to not trust it, where things were uncertain. And I actually did this with my students. So I made them do readings without giving them any validation from the person that they were reading. So they weren't allowed to get like a yes or a no, like any confirmation, any clues from the person that they were reading. And honestly, this is one of the best exercises that you can do to refine your psychic abilities, because it can really expose the exact moment where your lack of self-trust comes up when you're doing a reading. And for me, being the detail whore that I am, I need to see everyone's blind spots so that I can really teach them, so that I can help them personally, because we all work so differently. There's literally no blanket approach when it comes to your psychic development in this world. So, for example, this student would start really well. The information would start to come through, she would start to flow. And what she was really good at as well was writing down the information, because I find that a lot of claircognizants, we write the information down, right? Because it just comes in this natural flow, this inner knowing that just comes through, and it can be very easy just to write it all down. So she would get this information come through, started off writing, but then she was just speaking it out loud. And then what happened, she would suddenly go, okay, that's all I'm getting. Like, there's no more. Like, just dead end stop. And I was like, that's not true. So I told her, I was like, where you got to was just the point where you stopped feeling safe without getting any validation back from your sitter. Like, that was her edge. That was her edge of self-trust. Because if you're claircognizant, then you probably have a threshold, okay? Like, you can hold energy, you can hold impressions. You're getting to a point until you can't logically explain it anymore, and then you stop, right? Because what's happened is, like, you've reached the point where your mind, like, needed proof at that point, So the information, the energy that you're actually getting, that didn't stop. Like, you were still getting that information through. Impressions were still there. It was just the point that you shut it down and stopped following that thread because your mind got in the way, right? Your fears got in the way. Your lack of self-trust got in the way. And the fact of what I was seeing for her was that this was such a spiritual lesson, like beyond her psychic development, honestly, as well. And in fact, this is for all claircognizants out there, because this exact pattern is what's going to show up every single place in your life, in your business, in your purpose, your relationships, your leadership, your next steps, if you're online, your content, your visibility, like wherever you are on your spiritual journey, if you're doing this for work, if you're not, whatever. Because you keep waiting on external confirmation before trusting what your soul already knows. Because you're waiting for someone else to validate it for you, whatever that is. You're booking psychic readings, you're waiting for a fucking massive sign from spirit, you're waiting for guarantees before allowing yourself to actually trust your own inner knowing, the information that's already coming through to you. And your soul evolution, what your soul is trying to do as it evolves, it is going to constantly push you into situations where you just have to trust yourself and your inner knowing before any kind of evidence, before any kind of confirmation, before any kind of proof actually starts to come. This is what I'll call a part of your initiation. And it's really funny. Well, not funny, because these are how things happen. Like I said, everything is so connected. And she had actually told me as well, she said, hey, I'm struggling to hear my guides when I'm just at home alone. I'm trying to connect with them. And I just don't, I'm just not getting anything. And I told her when I tuned into and channeled her guides, I was like, firstly, you are expecting it to come through differently to your knowing. Like, she was expecting some big gesture again, or some big sign, when it's not how it works for her. It sounds like her own voice, and she was overriding it. And then secondly, what her guides were telling me was that they were becoming a little bit more quiet because she needed to learn to stop outsourcing. Like, that was a bigger lesson that she was here to learn at this particular junction of her evolution. Outsourcing her decisions, everything to everyone outside of herself, which also included them. and she'd been doing this, she'd been kind of like rolling on this for a couple of months. There were certain things in her life that were happening, certain decisions that she was like gasping for clarity on and just upset that she wasn't getting clarity on it. But this is because she was trying to outsource everything and she wasn't listening to herself. And as I said, this is one of the biggest soul lessons that you're going to have to navigate as a claircognizant, is to trust your own soul, trust your higher self. Because I've seen this, right? I've seen this where, honestly, the most gifted intuitives start outsourcing everything to their guides when that is actually not their job. I've also seen people blame their guides when shit goes wrong in their life. Like, your guides can't intervene. Like, they can support you, but you are the leader of your ship, right? Your soul is the captain of your journey. It's the CEO of your own company called life, and your guides are like your staff, right? Maybe that have like a specialist area of expertise, and I can only liken it to when I had my recruitment company, right? I would have specialists in each area, someone that focused on marketing, someone that focused on media, someone that focused on social, someone that focused on tech, etc., etc. You are the one that's leading the vision of the company, not them. They can work with you to co-create it, but you need to look within yourself first. Like, this is a huge lesson on this journey. And it's honestly why I teach about spirit guides and helping people to work with theirs and to connect with theirs. But equally, I help people to work with their soul, to help them build a relationship with themselves first. This is so key to your ascension path. Because again, we have been, as a society, not just claircognizance, but as a society, we've been so conditioned to outsource every fucking thing to everything outside of ourselves. And this is part of this spiritual journey. We need to stop that. And even in spiritual spaces, it still shows up. And this is where you're being asked to stop that. And another thing I want to touch on is that when you're claircognizant, and this is a really important thing, like to really help you understand and trust the inner knowing, is that usually that inner knowing, the energy of that will come through a certain part of your body or like a certain part of your energy field. So when I help my clients to trust their inner knowing, I always help them to recognize if there's like a bodily feeling or a sensation that comes with that download. Because again, claircognizant isn't just in the mental. It's not just something that drops into your head, like a download that drops into your mind. I mean, look, for some people it is, but for a lot of other people, it actually isn't. So sometimes your knowing kind of, I guess, lands in a particular chakra, a particular energy center. So for me, it works differently depending on what the inner knowing is, like depending if it's, if I'm channeling a guide, if I'm channeling higher wisdom, or teaching on something, or whatever it is, it can come in different ways. But a lot of the time, my soul truth lands in my heart. So that is the energy center that tends to kind of run through me, because for me, that's the lens of truth. It's a lens of love. It always feels really calm. When truth comes through, it always feels like this calm, knowing certainty in my heart. It's very subtle, but it's very, that's the only way that I can describe it. But I also can feel it come through like the back of my head to the right hand side, almost like it's coming through my inner ear and then land in my heart. So when I got my client to tune in to where her inner knowing came in, like where did she feel it come in? Was it her head, her neck, her heart? And she said it was her solar plexus. And the second she said that, it made complete sense, because solar plexus claircognizance is like this, it comes through, it's like that gut feeling, right? That fast gut knowing, that just that instinctive truth. And what I've noticed is that the intuitives that work this way, they're really good at reading energy. They're very good at discernment. Like you can walk into a room and you're like, I know everything I need to know about who's in here, what's going in here. And it's just like that. It comes through so immediate, like it just comes. So that's why it can be so hard, like, and so easy to doubt it, because it kind of feels too simple, And that is why learning your own psychic language, it matters so much, because Your soul is going to communicate through your energy field. It's going to communicate through your body, not someone else's. So again, this is why some people feel it in their chest, some people feel it in their gut, some people feel it in their throat. Some people get like full on downloads through their crown. And some people literally don't know what they know until they just start speaking it out. Like that is really common too. And I've had all of these. And this is what I want to say. It's like you can have multiple ones of these. It doesn't have to be the one way, but there usually will be one way that you can start to familiarize yourself with right now. I've had students where it comes through the top of their head and then drops into their stomach. And then when they ignore it, their belly is going to make like this gurgling sound, like loud noises. And that just shows you how interlinked your body, your energy system, your nervous system, and your intuition is. So basically that gurgling sound, that was like, so when she was ignoring her knowing, her body was like, hello, we fucking told you, are you going to listen to it or what? Your body is reacting. Like before you can even like consciously understand what's happening, your body has already had a reaction. And this is why, again, for claircognizance, it's really common to have an associated kind of gut feeling with the knowing that comes through. Again, it can be different for everyone. It could be like a nauseous feeling. It could be butterflies. It could feel expansive. It could feel tight. It really, really depends. And also depends, if it's a knowing that's like about a bad thing or like about a good thing. Again, it can change. So again, this is why it's so interesting. Like our whole body, our whole nervous system is part of our psychic abilities. And this is why it's such a key component of how I teach. It's like in this case, the crown gets the download and then the gut or the solar plexus is just confirming the truth. So it's almost like these 2 points work coherently in tandem together. But again, it's literally so different for everyone. And from the way that I've seen it, how your knowing lands, like where about in the body, it can tell you a lot about one, where the information is coming from energetically, what type of knowing it is, how your soul processes information, what channel is really strong for you, and what the information is connected to. Because I have seen a bit of a pattern here. Because again, like the different energy centers carry different textures of knowing. For example, if you feel your inner knowing come through your solar plexus or your gut, again, this is where people say gut truth, right? It's like that very immediate, you'll usually have really good discernment around things like danger or safety, right and wrong situations. If you're like me and you have a lot you translate through your heart center, it can feel very different to a gut reaction as it comes through more like a feeling of like soul truth. It has like this loving kind of compassionate undertone rather than feeling kind of like urgent, which sometimes the gut can. It feels quite calm and quite grounded. If you feel your inner knowing come through your throat channel, this is where your knowing comes through as you speak, because I get this as well, where you actually don't know anything until you actually say it out loud. And again, this is where the information, the knowing just starts to unfold while you're talking or while you're like verbally channeling. And I've had so many clients that are like, I just said this thing and I don't know how I said it and I don't know how I knew it. I just said it and it landed and da 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 da. And I'm like, yeah, that's why. But you can also actually have your inner knowing come through your third eye, right? And this is usually where, clairvoyance will work with our third eye. But when the inner knowing comes through that channel, I find that these people are really good at pattern recognition. I find that they're really good at predicting future insights, like very good at connecting the dots to things, tied to like imagery and symbology. So if you feel like your inner knowing is just dropping through your third eye, you might notice that you're very good at that. If your inner knowing comes through from the crown, again, which is really common, when we talk about downloads, like that's just a pure download energy, it kind of just feels like it just drops in from nowhere. I see this happen when it comes to like bringing through some like big types of concepts, some kind of teaching, some spiritual truths, maybe some more collective energy. I see that happens a lot with, people that are very connected to the galactics, connected to the collective. They will often get kind of downloads just dropping in through the crown. And then you've got your sacral. So usually when you feel it in your sacral, there's like this creative energy attached to it, right? You usually have a pretty good handle on your energetic yeses and no responses. You could also feel yourself being like that sacral response being pulled, like even your physical body being pulled towards, certain people, projects, directions. Again, the sacral energy can kind of, your inner knowing can come through like this lens of desire, almost like more like just this creative energy, this resonance almost. And then we've got the root. Now, I don't hear about this as often, but if your inner knowing feels like it drops into your root chakra, then you're probably more prone. It feels more like a grounded sensing, more like a practical type of knowing, maybe about stability or about timing or about safety in some way. That's probably where it can show up in the root. But again, I don't see that mostly. Mostly where I have seen people's inner knowing drop in is either in through the crown, through the throat, through like the ear, the heart, and the solar plexus, usually. But again, everyone is so different. That is why it's so important to know your own intuitive language. Because again, one claircognizant person could get like a tightness in their solar plexus, which means the truth for them, versus another person could feel like this warmth and this openness in their chest, which is about soul alignment. And then another person could, again, just have like the words just start falling out of their mouth like quicker than they can think. And then they're like, I don't know where the fuck that came from. Or also, this is another one, you can just have this feeling like you just start to feel really neutral and certain about something, just all of a sudden. You just feel really, it's a neutral feeling. Even if the thing you know is bad, you have this like almost calm come over you. It's just this certainty and this knowing. That is also how it can show up. So again, it's so different for everyone. And you can, like I said, you can have lots of different ones. You can have it come in different ways. Like I have it come through different ways. And this is why refining your gifts matters so much. Because if you actually want to use them, then knowing how this works to give yourself tangible information, to be able to do a reading, to be able to read your life, to be able to trust the knowings to give your life direction, it matters, because again, it's really about how your soul specifically transmits information through your unique language and through your energy field. So, honestly, one of the most, if I can give you any tips now, it's like one of the most powerful things that you could probably go and do now is just start tracking. Start tracking where you feel the knowing come in, and then does it like move somewhere else? Like, does it come through the crown and then move to your solar plexus? How fast it comes in, how it actually feels when it comes in, how your body actually responds before maybe your mind, i.e. the self-doubt, then creeps in, right? Before it starts to interpret it. And again, this is why you have to understand that your intuition, your spiritual path doesn't look like anyone else's. I cannot tell you how many claircognizants I have taught that have doubted their abilities because they are not seeing full-on fucking visions, hearing spirit voices, getting crazy signs, like I said. Meanwhile, their soul's been communicating with them their entire life through their inner knowing, but they've just been like ignoring it because it didn't look like it was enough. It didn't come through as like proof, which sometimes, when you see a vision or you hear something, it feels like there's more evidence than just what feels like and could be your normal thoughts. And that's why it's the biggest cock block, right? Because, being claircognizant really needs you to surrender. It needs you to trust yourself before there's any kind of proof. That's why it's hard. That is terrifying. That's so scary for your ego, right? Because we want guarantees, right? Our ego wants guarantees. It wants evidence. It wants control. But our intuition, it don't work like that. It's just kind of like, okay, just take the fucking first step. Can we do that? Just trust what I've just told you. And I honestly think that, I know, when you take that first step, the validation will always come afterwards. It always does. Just like my client, right? After she did the reading, she was able to get the validation from the sitter, and it was all check, 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 check. And when she felt safe that it was all being confirmed, fucking more streamed in. So it really shows you where our mind and our lack of self-trust comes in, and the amount of information that you can actually receive when you do trust. And I think, that's why there are so many claircognizants in the world that right now are being initiated into a deeper level of their own soul leadership. Because eventually you're being asked to stop outsourcing your truth, all of it. Because your soul is really just trying to strengthen your relationship to you. And remember, the first thing you get is always the clearest. That's another huge lesson. The first hit is what you need to trust, because that comes way before your fucking head starts to question it and get involved and be like, oh, am I making this shit up? And that's why I always tell my clients and my students, I'm like, stay in the thread, follow the symbol, follow the impression, follow the knowing, follow the next piece, let it evolve, follow the feeling, keep going. Because the information, psychic information, spirit information, spirit will unfold that information in layers. And if you stop the second that you feel kind of unsure or you're not getting feedback, if you're on the right track, then you're never going to allow that evidence chain to continue to unfold. And that's genuinely what you need to help you become a better intuitive with this gift. How long can you actually stay connected before your own lack of self-trust, your own fear, pulls you out of that energy to receive that information? That is the work. That is the refinement. That is what is going to get you to mastery level. And if you're listening to this and you are claircognizant, again, I really want you to start paying attention to, today you can start doing this. How your inner knowing comes to you, where you feel it in your body, what happens before you allow your doubt to come in, how your soul is speaking to you already, what the first hit was that you got. And start looking back at how many times your first instinct was actually right, because I bet you there was so many times. But that's your evidence. You've already had the evidence. You just need to look at it, trust it. So write it down, keep a diary, because I guarantee you, your soul's been speaking to you so loud than you've ever realized, and for a lot longer time. But you just haven't fully trusted it yet. And if you want to know how you can refine your gifts, step into more soul leadership in your life, fully trust your intuition and your relationships, your business, step into your soul work and your spiritual authority, then you can check the links below, see how I can help. So until the next time, I am sending you so much love. Trust yourself.